Call the City of Colleyville Planning and Zoning Commission pre-commission meeting to order. Now we'll start with the roll call. Commissioner Moore, here. Commissioner Syed.
Here.
Commissioner Holt, absent. Commissioner Mattison, she's absent, so I'm sitting right here. Commissioner Cook.
Here.
Commissioner Bevel.
Here.
And Commissioner Bond.
Here.
All right. Ready to go? All right.
So the first item on the agenda, jump ahead. It's for the preliminary and final plat for 401 Shelton Drive. This is for 24 single-family homes. The property is zoned R20. Fast. So this is for the R20 standards that would apply. And we put this together. They are requesting private streets with a gated entrance, a gated emergency access connection to the open subdivision. Again, 24 lots. And the Land Development Code provides a guideline that a private street with a subdivision that contains 25 lots or greater. This has 24, so they need to have permission from the city council to have the 24 lots be private with connection to the Oakley subdivision. If you consider that, even though they're two separate subdivisions, but they're adjoining, it would be a total of 47 lots, including 2 open space lots, and that just kind of shows the breakdown of the area, total area, the open space, altogether. And then the density, the net density would be 1.85 dwelling units per acre. And then this is the plat that has not changed significantly since we met the last time. We are still working with on the emergency access gate over here. In that, let me see if I get this right. Get this right. With the gate, the Land Development Code does say there needs to be a turnaround. However, unless the City Council and you all decide that this is appropriate for this subdivision, this configuration with the gate and no turnaround. So it's something to think about.
What do you mean by that? Because it's.
What I mean by that is, so with the gate here, it essentially, this is just emergency access only for delivery trucks, garbage trucks. They come down here.
I got you now.
It kind of acts as a.
It's like a court that's not a court.
That's right, exactly.
But if they get in there and the gate doesn't open, there's not a way out.
They'd have to back out.
Right, they'd be backing up this way and then.
Mhm.
As a existing, you can put the sign, no outlet.
Right, right. That would be something that could be done there, sure.
So if we're talking about R20 though, the 1.85 doesn't apply to the 1.8. Is that correct? That if it were a PUD, the 1.8 would be.
I think I can answer that. So the the comprehensive plan has a recommendation to try and get to 1.8 net density for all new subdivisions. This has the existing R20 district zoning. If you look at the table that has all the different setback requirements and minimum size dimension requirements, it does still identify a 2.1 density allowance. And where that comes into play is if you have say a 40,000 square foot lot or a 60,000 square foot lot, and you're able to meet all of the other dimensional requirements, and if you subdivide that just through the math, it's going to be 2.1 units per acre.
So it's compliant.
Well, it's at 1.85, So yes, it's compliant with the zoning district, and it is just shy of the recommendation as identified in the comprehensive plan.
Okay, thank you.
But it has existing zoning, and so if this included a change of zoning, I think you would use that as justification for approval or denial of the zoning, but since this is just the plat,
Right,
it complies with all district requirements.
and the zoning is there, it's
Yes.
R20. Thank you.
Correct.
Is this it for the?
Yeah, that's it for this.
Because I will have questions about drainage and, there's a big pond. I don't think it was talked much last, the work session I wasn't there, but there's a really big pond in there, and that's collecting drainage now. What's the plan for that?
Yeah, we'll make sure that we have the drainage plan in here so we can talk about what they're proposing in the regular meeting.
Keep going.
Anybody else? Any questions?
Go back.
Well, go back one, sure.
Unless I misunderstood when the developer was kind of answering some questions during the work session, the drainage is adequate as it is. Is that, did I not understand that?
Well, there's one piece that, no, go to the drainage.
I'm going.
The way they have it designed right now is these are all storm sewers that will collect the water and bring it back to this point. There is an existing pond here that will be filled in, but there's additional drainage within the railroad right-of-way, and it gets back to more ponds and lakes further southwest. The one piece that they're still working on is making sure that they have the agreement from the railroad to be able to discharge onto their right-of-way. The channels are there, the water is already going southwest. It's just making sure that they have the agreements to discharge onto that.
So it's more than adequate with that agreement?
Correct. Yes, all of the off-site downstream is in place, ready to accept it. We just need to make sure they have the permission to discharge onto it.
Everybody good? We're moving on? Okay.
Yeah?
Okay, so the next two items are for the Blue Bonnet Cemetery, and they are requesting a zoning change from ag to CC1 with an SUP, specific use permit, and there's the property.
It's a much more effective way for
So you can see the ag right there, it's next to their current operation, and they just want to expand into the area that's ag there, and I'm gonna go through where the blue is. This is just a different view, that's 26, and that's looking to the east.
Is that Hall Johnson?
That's Hall Johnson to the right, and that's 26 here
Okay.
to the west. Okay, so some previous outstanding issues, I believe they came before the Planning and Zoning Commission in 2018, and they were these issues here. Improvements to the ditch along the eastern boundary, better silt fencing to control erosion, drainage to include information on the planned detention pond area, working with the Broughton neighborhood to clean out the pond due to increased erosion from the cemetery site, indicating a distance buffer area from the grave sites to the eastern property line, and a remedy to eliminate the spoils yard, and appropriate fencing and landscaping along Hall Johnson Road. So, I keep going the wrong way tonight, not with this thing. All right, so, this is the property that we're talking about tonight, and the Broughton subdivision is there to the right side. And this is currently what it looks like, and that's looking at Hall Johnson right there to the south. That's an aerial view of it. And here's what they're proposing. So they are proposing a 25-foot buffer between the cemetery use and the Broughton subdivision. They are adding a hedge and ornamental fence where it's indicated there, and then an ornamental wrought iron fence with 3-foot-high shrubbery. I know that they are also working, I'll go further in here in a second, but they're also putting some additional plantings and things as well.
They actually increased the eastern buffer to wrap around the north side as well. So I guess it stops there and then they'll pick it back up right here.
So they're proposing a 25-foot buffer? And so the grave sites then would be outside of that buffer?
That's right.
That's correct.
Okay. So are they proposing anything to keep people who are visiting the grave sites from moving back into that buffer area?
Just as they're there,
Well, when people are visiting the grave sites there.
well, I don't think so. I think they want to keep the open park feel, but especially for the majority along this boundary, they are proposing the swale to collect the water.
So people wouldn't be
Yeah, I don't think anyone would really want to
trespassing
be there.
onto the property of the homeowners? Because there's no fence or anything there.
Right, yeah, so none of the existing shrubs or trees will be removed, and then they are proposing additional trees in this area, plus the swale improvements to be able to collect the water and get it down to this corner here.
Would
And
that
they
be-
have some offsite
Will
improvements.
those details be included in the ordinance?
Yes,
Yes.
we've got some,
Good.
yeah, it's outlined in the ordinance, and there's some exhibits that highlight that as well.
I'm sorry I didn't have time to read that.
Why is that area in dark gray? Because we're talking about the whole,
Well, this already has
Yeah.
CC1 zoning
Right.
and the SUP.
Does
This is the
Yeah.
area that's ag. There are some,
but why is that portion dark gray? Is that?
well,
part of
because
it?
this has very, very limited development in it, and that's really the expansion. It actually is filled out for that part. And so this is really the vacant part right here.
That's the vacant part.
Yeah. But the ag area, actually, the limits of it includes this entire area. But they already have grave sites here. It's really just
Just
this
this
area.
section.
And I think the concern we had before was that the grave sites, if they were to go all the way to the property line, then people who came and visited and what have you would actually most likely encroach onto the property of the homeowners there. But that's not gonna happen with that swell there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of silt issues too.
So this is the overview that shows the improvements there. It is, I think it's a cement channel, and it takes it down to the southeast corner, and then it will turn. This is the Broughton open area along Hall Johnson, and it actually gets to a culvert here that leads over to their pond. And so it'll all come over to the side, down, and then around, and eventually get into that pond.
So currently, this is a view of what you'd see along Hall Johnson Road, and this is, then they've kind of shown you what it would look like with the fencing and the shrubbery.
I like how they're gonna make the grass greener. That's a joke. I always think it's funny when you do the comparisons in one. Yeah, ooh, the green.
It's always
Looks
perfect.
nicer because, look,
Well,
I just find that funny.
So
what
these
it's
are
gonna be like.
these are the proposed conditions for the SUP. So gravesite spoils are to be stored in the cemetery's maintenance area. No gravesite or cemetery improvement shall be closer than 25 feet to the east property line, with the exception of drainage improvements and landscaping. A minimum of 25 Nellie R. Stevens holly shrubs shall be planted within the 25-foot setback area. A minimum of 55 number 7 Texas privet shall be planted within the 25-foot setback area. A minimum 3-foot ornamental iron/tubular fence shall be constructed along Hall Johnson Road. A minimum 3-foot shrub row shall be planted along Hall Johnson. Drainage and swale channel improvements shall be made along the eastern property line and within the Broughton addition.
And I do believe also the concern of the homeowners had to do with dredging the pond. And I did read that they had apparently come to some kind of agreement with the homeowners association
Yes, that's
to
right.
take care of that.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so I debated about putting that in as a condition, but to me, it seemed like a one-time situation that they've already made an agreement to do that.
Do they have a written agreement, do you know?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Yep. A copy of that was provided, which includes that agreement.
Okay.
Matt,
Sure.
any letters of support outside of the one we have from the homeowners?
We haven't received anything to date.
I know that they are still working
The subdivision
with
to
the
south.
subdivision across Hall Johnson. I don't think that they've been able to resolve anything, and so we anticipate that someone from the neighborhood will be here from Stonecrest, is that? Yeah. But we do have the letter of support from Ron. Yeah.
And no letters against for the, except for,
The pond is across the street, is that correct?
There's a pond right here.
Is that the one that needs the attention?
That will get,
Yes.
yeah, that's the one that will get dredged. I can't remember about over here. I don't think there's one right there.
Okay.
I think I'm up next.
Okay.
Are you ready for the next one?
yes.
All right,
Good.
so this is the large accessory building, which has a small accessory dwelling located within. It's also on Hall Johnson Road, zoned R20. So I think this is the best picture. So they did receive a permit early last year to build this structure. It was considered the primary dwelling. The reason for that was based on the size. They did include the living area within this to have it qualify as a primary structure. The way that the ordinance read, or at least was being interpreted and processed, was based on the definition that a dwelling includes a place to sleep, go to the restroom or whatever, restroom facilities, and then food preparation, which includes a full kitchen, which typically in communities that's a stove and an oven. So with this being the primary structure, this existing house, what they were proposing to do was remove the stove and the oven, and it would no longer be considered a dwelling. However, last year, the process or interpretation of that, what constitutes a dwelling is not only basically the noun definition, but also the active dwelling or the verb. And the desire is to maintain the existing tenants in the house. And so that changed the dynamic on this. And so the request today is have the house remain as the primary structure, the existing use on the property. This is now an accessory building. It is larger than the 4% allowed for the property. And then with the living area within the large structure, it also requires a special use permit for the accessory dwelling. And it does have the option for that. So this is the data. So it is a 4,000 square foot building. The existing house is 820 square feet. And so from a lot coverage standpoint, it's 11.5%. But the 4% for accessory structures is limited to 1,672. So it is more than double the allowance without the special use permit. And then the accessory dwelling is about 350 square feet, but that's within the structure. Yeah. And so the request is special use permit to exceed the 4% and also to allow for the accessory dwelling.
So I wasn't here last time. I did watch the works, and I'm not kidding, I was confused. So I'm still a little confused. How did this happen? Like, how did this
Yeah.
come about?
So the way I was processing these types of requests in looking at what constitutes an accessory dwelling or not was meeting the definition to include all of those components to what qualifies as a dwelling. And so if this was going to be the primary dwelling, to able to get to this size, 4,000 square feet, that means this would have to become the accessory building. But in order for it to not be considered an accessory dwelling, they would have to remove a component. And the easiest thing would be to remove the stove in the oven. And that's how we would always enforce dwellings, is through the noun, the definition. Is the structure a dwelling? Does it meet all the components to qualify as a dwelling? That changed through direction through the city manager's office to also include the active dwelling in the structure. They were already under construction with this structure, and so it changed the dynamic before they, so what that meant is that they could not get the final inspection and certificate of occupancy for the structure because his tenant was still living in this structure. And so we now have the noun as well as the verb as far as what we look at for the use of any of the structures. And with that, it makes sense for this to remain as the primary structure. And so now we have an oversized accessory building, which also includes an accessory
Because if
building.
not, that would become the main dwelling, and that would become the accessory building. Which
And
totally-
we don't allow for
Accessory
rental of accessory buildings.
And isn't there also something about accessory buildings in front of the main dwelling or something? Or not?
We are in the process of making that code. We don't have that today. It'll go to city council next week for final
Okay, we just talked
reading.
about that. But we did agree that we did vote.
Yeah, that recently came through as far as the land development code amendment. This came in prior to that change, and so it's kind of grandfathered in the process. He can still request. Well, in this case, we are considering this as the primary structure. And so the accessory
Yeah,
building would be fine. It's just that
This to me is one, I mean, it's better discussion for the actual meeting, but this is one of those weird things that you're kind of,
It's a one-off.
yeah, you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't in a way, because it is what it is, and if we say no, then what happens? Say, you say, no, we don't approve this, then what happens?
The tenant can't live in that
the
accessory
tenant
building.
cannot live here. They could live in the 350 square foot accessory dwelling if you approve the accessory dwelling component.
But then you've
Well,
got
actually, no,
an
this
accessory
becomes the
building in the
primary-
front yard that,
Well, it'd be a grandfather situation because it was built prior to
yeah,
that
but it was,
change.
but I
Yeah.
get, it would be an accessory building
Yes.
sitting up
We
there.
would be forcing a vacant home in the front yard at that point.
Yeah, okay.
How old is the existing house?
Nouns and
I should
verbs,
have
man,
pulled that
nouns and
up.
verbs.
It's an old home. I think it's a
It's
60s.
that day at school.
This house?
Yeah, this is the existing home. And then that's the building in the back. Yeah, so that's the request for this one.
We have a letter of support in our packet, correct?
Yes, came in last week, so you have that in front of you today.
Have we received, up to the start of this meeting, any letters against?
We have not.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So the next is for Heritage Farm properties. And I'm gonna kind of jump ahead here. We did receive some new exhibits. Kind of jump to those if that's all right with you all. Here's one of them. So this is an aerial perspective looking east from Wayne Drive and kind of showing the massing of the buildings. So the green area around so short, guys, over here. Because this is not retention, would be the detention area. She'll show you that on the next exhibit as well. This is a carport view, so what you would see from Wayne Drive, and you can see a carport all the way back there. An idea of what it would look like. That hasn't changed. This hasn't changed, but this is an entry perspective from Wayne Drive, so when you're standing on Wayne Drive, what that entryway would look like.
Was the carport there last time we looked at this?
The carports were shown on the plan. We did have, rather than this type of perspective, just a rendering or an elevation of the carports. So this gives a little more
Okay.
perspective of what they will look like.
I didn't recall that, thank you.
Yeah.
It's here before, okay. So these are some drainage cross-section exhibits, so you can see again, these are the detention area around the buildings, and then these show, so from the folks that live over here, exactly what it will kind of look like with the drainage, with the fence there. So you can kind of see how the drainage would be taken care of.
The top one is perspective next to the properties to the east, and then the bottom one's the ones on the south.
I went over there and actually I took pictures and I kind of meandered around that whole area trying to get to all of the, it's kind of hard to get to. It's behind, they're behind the little shopping center, Terra Village. Anyway, actually that drain pipe is huge, but it's clogged up with like overgrowth and stuff like that. Who would maintain that?
So they would have to make sure that it's going to function appropriately, and then it will just be privately maintained, so they will have to maintain it as well.
By the developer?
Correct.
Right, okay. Because it was really overgrown, and I can see why drainage would be a concern. But if that was all cleaned out and opened up, probably would be fine.
So it looks like there's basically 4-foot slopes down to the drainage area, which is just a drainage area. There's no intention of keeping water in there at all.
Right.
That's right.
Who's been maintaining that now?
Doesn't look
Because
maintained.
it's not.
Whoever the property owner is should have,
Okay.
but
Okay.
probably
And it
done
sits
minimal.
empty, so I mean, everything it picks up along the way,
Well,
it's gonna dump in there.
It's
So,
a private property.
This
so-
is,
yeah, but it's supposed to be maintained.
Yeah,
yeah.
if we would have received a complaint, we would have gone out, investigated, and if there was a need to clean it out, we would have had the property owner do it.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Inside of their easement,
Mhm.
if it's underneath a public street somewhere,
No.
it's gonna be.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know what's sitting right there, I mean,
It probably goes out to Cheeksburger. No. Yeah, because it's behind Terra Village.
is it like a grate inlet and the grate's filling up with,
No, it's not,
it's a big head wall?
it's like a big,
It's a big
Yeah, well-
cement, kind of culvert thing of pipes.
but
And
stuff.
we'll get them to address that in the meeting, what's,
Okay.
because I can't see obviously by this detail what's gonna go in right there, but I see it where it's headed. Big pipe.
I might go find the pictures, I don't know.
Yeah, that's what we had last time for the.
Okay.
Those were the only changes from last time.
They were.
And is the carport for residents there? Is it
Yes.
used for residents? Okay. And how many spaces?
Go back to the site exhibit.
I'm going too far again.
I don't think we've had a conversation about that. I was just curious.
Yeah, you can see them there on the, basically the south and the east.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Which would be
Yeah,
to
I
the
see.
right and to
I
the
see,
top.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
I see that now. Okay.
Is there a water flow map in here somewhere?
I think we had it in there. Let's go the other way. I think I had taken it out because they, do you have the color, the
Okay.
cross sections? I think I had taken it out because this here, everything's, they're either collecting water from this way, or from this way, or from the site itself, and eventually it's all going to this corner here. There may be a little bit that will come up to Cheek Sparger, but the majority of it's going to this corner, and then it's going into those.
So, but are there like rates in the streets that are gonna flow it into here? How does the water all get there?
There are actual, what do you
Processes.
call those? What do you call those things, the holes that go down the side of the street, the curb?
Storm sewers?
Storm sewers. Yeah.
What was the story I was saying? Great. So there will be
They'll
storm
be able
sewers.
to,
And that's all gonna flow into these retention pond areas that'll then flow out, yeah. Deep.
Flow into the city of Colleyville storm drain system right there.
yeah, so it'll all, on a really heavy rain, all of this will fill up, and it's got the appropriate release here to
But-
get in.
But every drop of water that falls on that doesn't get absorbed into the grass is gonna end up in these ponds. There's no way of connecting directly into the drain pipe anywhere. It's all gonna come back down that way and then out that way.
Well, there may be a little bit that comes up here
That's what I
into
was-
the existing system that's in Cheek Sparger, but what doesn't go up there will get collected and come back this way and then go into the pipes. And ultimately, that will go to the Little Bear Creek system.
It's kinda why I wanted to see that.
Yeah. I think I should not have taken out a sheet.
For some
I
reason,
replaced it
I
with
think
a-
I remember seeing a storm drain behind Terra Village, in that alleyway back there.
That's where it is.
Yeah, that's exactly.
And see, they might be collecting it and getting into this as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because these.
I
yeah,
tried to,
the-
I'm not an engineer, but I did check that all out really well and tried to figure out, it looks like it would work if it were cleaned out. If it weren't obstructed with so much overgrowth and stuff.
And I think as they clean the site up, if they get approval, it'll dramatically improve that situation
Right.
anyway.
But what I remember from the last meeting, their engineer mentioned that all those, because of this development, they'll drain every drop of water to the existing ponds. That's what I remember.
Yeah, that's what it. I see that, yeah. Look at that. I should have maybe,
And we don't have any communication on that project at all
You received
from citizens?
one letter of opposition.
Oh, yeah, one letter that was provided this week from
Oh, okay,
a
yes.
resident from Bedford. Okay, so those are all the cases, but as far as the updates for our meetings in March, we do not have a quorum for the week of spring break, and so the plan was just to have the work session and regular meeting on the same night, which would be the 23rd. March 23rd will be our work session for the April meeting, but also our regular meeting for March for the items that, so we have a work session in 2 weeks. And so those items that you will hear in 2 weeks will be at the regular meeting on March 23rd. And we will not have a meeting on March 9th. And then, We just wanted to also make an announcement. A few months ago, our settings changed, and we've realized that when we send emails out, a lot of times they go to people's junk box. And so if you aren't getting something from us and you are expecting something from us, please check your junk box. It might be getting rerouted into that box for some reason. I know it does it more often than not for Gmail accounts, but any account is susceptible
I think
to
I'm
it.
gonna have to just give you a whole new account because I'm not finding it in my junk for the last two. I'm not finding it anywhere.
At all? Okay.
Yeah, and so I don't know what happened. I mean, I don't know why I would reject your email.
Yeah. Especially since we've been emailing back and forth so many.
Well, now today, when I communicated with you, I got your response. But on that group,
It's not working on the group
I'm not
one.
getting it.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
all
Well, we'll
right.
try.
I might give you a new, I
Yeah,
have
if you're
no
not
good
getting
one.
something from us, let us know and we can try something else. But I know we have to deal with this almost every day now. It's, for some reason, it's going to people's junk box. And so,
Well, that's easy to check. But
Yeah.
when it's not there, then you've got problems.
yeah, absolutely.
But we can always go online. We're smart. We can do that. You go online and get it.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, it's there.
We're gonna close public,
Okay, perfect.
gonna close the public hearing, and we're gonna go